the new God of unanointing, the new gods of unanointing, the new God of unanointing, the new goddess of unanointing, the new goddesses of unanointing, the new goddess of unanointing, the old God of unanointing, the old gods of unanointing, the old God of unanointing, the old goddess of unanointing, the old goddesses of unanointing, the old goddess of unanointing, the greater God of unanointing, the greater gods of unanointing, the greater God of unanointing, the greater goddess of unanointing, the greater goddesses of unanointing, the greater goddess of unanointing, the lesser God of unanointing, the lesser gods of unanointing, the lesser God of unanointing, the lesser goddess of unanointing, the lesser goddesses of unanointing, the lesser goddess of unanointing, the higher God of unanointing, the higher gods of unanointing, the higher God of unanointing, the higher goddess of unanointing, the higher goddesses of unanointing, the higher goddess of unanointing, the lower God of unanointing, the lower gods of unanointing, the lower God of unanointing, the lower goddess of unanointing, the lower goddesses of unanointing, the lower goddess of unanointing, the greater spirit of unanointing, the greater spirits of unanointing, the greater spirit of unanointing, the lesser spirit of unanointing, the lesser spirits of unanointing, the lesser spirit of unanointing, the higher spirit of unanointing, the higher spirits of unanointing, the higher spirit of unanointing, the lower spirit of unanointing, the lower spirits of unanointing, the lower spirit of unanointing, the major God of unanointing, the major gods of unanointing, the major God of unanointing, the major goddess of unanointing, the major goddesses of unanointing, the major goddess of unanointing, the minor God of unanointing, the minor gods of unanointing, the minor God of unanointing, the minor goddess of unanointing, the minor goddesses of unanointing, the minor goddess of unanointing, the superior God of unanointing, the superior gods of unanointing, the superior God of unanointing, the superior goddess of unanointing, the superior goddesses of unanointing, the superior goddess of unanointing, the inferior God of unanointing, the inferior gods of unanointing, the inferior God of unanointing, the inferior goddess of unanointing, the inferior goddesses of unanointing, the inferior goddess of unanointing, the ancestor God of unanointing, the ancestor gods of unanointing, the ancestor God of unanointing, the ancestor goddess of unanointing, the ancestor goddesses of unanointing, the ancestor goddess of unanointing, the ascendant God of unanointing, the ascendant gods of unanointing, the ascendant God of unanointing, the ascendant goddess of unanointing, the ascendant goddesses of unanointing, the ascendant goddess of unanointing, the descendant God of unanointing, the descendant gods of unanointing, the descendant God of unanointing, the descendant goddess of unanointing, the descendant goddesses of unanointing, the descendant goddess of unanointing, the transcendent God of unanointing, the transcendent gods of unanointing, the transcendent God of unanointing, the transcendent goddess of unanointing, the transcendent goddesses of unanointing, the transcendent goddess of unanointing, the past God of unanointing, the past gods of unanointing, the past God of unanointing, the past goddess of unanointing, the past goddesses of unanointing, the past goddess of unanointing, the present God of unanointing, the present gods of unanointing, the present God of unanointing, the present goddess of unanointing, the present goddesses of unanointing, the present goddess of unanointing, the future God of unanointing, the future gods of unanointing, the future God of unanointing, the future goddess of unanointing, the future goddesses of unanointing, the future goddess of unanointing, the authentic God of unanointing, the authentic gods of unanointing, the authentic God of unanointing, the authentic goddess of unanointing, the authentic goddesses of unanointing, the authentic goddess of unanointing, the synthetic God of unanointing, the synthetic gods of unanointing, the synthetic God of unanointing, the synthetic goddess of unanointing, the synthetic goddesses of unanointing, the synthetic goddess of unanointing, the progressive god of unanointing, the progressive gods of unanointing, the progressive god of unanointing, the progressive goddess of unanointing, the progressive goddesses of unanointing, the progressive goddess of unanointing, the regressive god of unanointing, the regressive gods of unanointing, the regressive god of unanointing, the regressive goddess of unanointing, the regressive goddesses of unanointing, the regressive goddess of unanointing, the ordinary god of unanointing, the ordinary gods of unanointing, the ordinary god of unanointing, the ordinary goddess of unanointing, the ordinary goddesses of unanointing, the ordinary goddess of unanointing, the extraordinary god of unanointing, the extraordinary gods of unanointing, the extraordinary god of unanointing, the extraordinary goddess of unanointing, the extraordinary goddesses of unanointing, the extraordinary goddess of unanointing, the static god of unanointing, the static gods of unanointing, the static god of unanointing, the static goddess of unanointing, the static goddesses of unanointing, the static goddess of unanointing, the dynamic god of unanointing, the dynamic gods of unanointing, the dynamic god of unanointing, the dynamic goddess of unanointing, the dynamic goddesses of unanointing, the dynamic goddess of unanointing, the land god of unanointing, the land gods of unanointing, the land god of unanointing, the land goddess of unanointing, the land goddesses of unanointing, the land goddess of unanointing, the sea god of unanointing, the sea gods of unanointing, the sea god of unanointing, the sea goddess of unanointing, the sea goddesses of unanointing, the sea goddess of unanointing, the sky god of unanointing, the sky gods of unanointing, the sky god of unanointing, the sky goddess of unanointing, the sky goddesses of unanointing, the sky goddess of unanointing, the god of unanointing, the gods of unanointing, the god of unanointing, the goddess of unanointing, the goddesses of unanointing, the goddess of unanointing, the half god of unanointing, the half gods of unanointing, the half god of unanointing, the half goddess of unanointing, the half goddesses of unanointing, the half goddess of unanointing, the vessel of unanointing, the vessels of unanointing, the vessel of unanointing, the name of unanointing, the names of unanointing, the name of unanointing, the person of unanointing, the persons of unanointing, the person of unanointing, the persona of unanointing, the personas of unanointing, the persona of unanointing, the personage of unanointing, the personages of unanointing, the personage of unanointing, the personality of unanointing, the personalities of unanointing, the personality of unanointing, the personification of unanointing, the personifications of unanointing, the personification of unanointing, the image of unanointing, the images of unanointing, the image of unanointing, the imagination of unanointing, the imaginations of unanointing, the imagination of unanointing, the belief of unanointing, the beliefs of unanointing, the belief of unanointing, the thought of unanointing, the thoughts of unanointing, the thought of unanointing, the word of unanointing, the words of unanointing, the word of unanointing, the action of unanointing, the actions of unanointing, the action of unanointing, the reaction of unanointing, the reactions of unanointing, the reaction of unanointing, the feeling of unanointing, the feelings of unanointing, the feeling of unanointing, the situation of unanointing, the situations of unanointing, the situation of unanointing, the circumstance of unanointing, the circumstances of unanointing, the circumstance of unanointing, the environment of unanointing, the environments of unanointing, the environment of unanointing, the relationship of unanointing, the relationships of unanointing, the relationship of unanointing, the number of unanointing, the numbers of unanointing, the number of unanointing, the formula of unanointing, the formulas of unanointing, The formula of unanointing. The equation of unanointing. The equations of unanointing. The equation of unanointing. The theory of unanointing. The theories of unanointing. The theory of unanointing. The symbol of unanointing. The symbols of unanointing. The symbol of unanointing. The color of unanointing. The colors of unanointing. The color of unanointing. The thing of unanointing. The things of unanointing. The thing of unanointing. The way of unanointing. The ways of unanointing. The way of unanointing. The place of unanointing. The places of unanointing. The place of unanointing. The time of unanointing. The times of unanointing. The time of unanointing. The event of unanointing. The events of unanointing. The event of unanointing. The result of unanointing. The results of unanointing. The result of unanointing. The crown of unanointing. The crowns of unanointing. The crown of unanointing. The throne of unanointing. The thrones of unanointing. The throne of unanointing. The unanointing king. The unanointing kings. The unanointing kingdom. The unanointing kingdoms. The unanointing king's subject. The unanointing king's subjects. The unanointing king's dominion. The unanointing king's dominions. The kingdom of unanointing. The kingdoms of unanointing. The kingdom of unanointing. The unanointing queen. The unanointing queens. The unanointing queendom. The unanointing queendoms. The unanointing queen's subject. The unanointing queen's subjects. The unanointing queen's dominion. The unanointing queen's dominions. The queendom of unanointing. The queendoms of unanointing. The queendom of unanointing. The unanointing prince. The unanointing princes. The unanointing princedom. The unanointing princedoms. The unanointing prince's subject. The unanointing prince's subjects. The unanointing prince's dominion. The unanointing prince's dominions. The princedom of unanointing. The princedoms of unanointing. The princedom of unanointing. The unanointing princess. The unanointing princesses. The unanointing princessdom. The unanointing princessdoms. The unanointing princess's subject. The unanointing princess's subjects. The unanointing princess's dominion. The unanointing princess's dominions. The princessdom of unanointing. The princessdoms of unanointing. The princessdom of unanointing. The lord of unanointing. The lords of unanointing. The lord of unanointing. The lordess of unanointing. The lordesses of unanointing. The lordess of unanointing. The priest of unanointing. The priests of unanointing. The priest of unanointing. The priestess of unanointing. The priestesses of unanointing. The priestess of unanointing. The ritual of unanointing. The rituals of unanointing. The ritual of unanointing. The shrine of unanointing. The shrines of unanointing. The shrine of unanointing. The temple of unanointing. The temples of unanointing. The temple of unanointing. The leader of unanointing. The leaders of unanointing. The leader of unanointing. The follower of unanointing. The followers of unanointing. The follower of unanointing. The natural substance of unanointing. The natural substances of unanointing. The natural substance of unanointing. The supernatural substance of unanointing. The supernatural substances of unanointing. The supernatural substance of unanointing. The temporal substance of unanointing. The temporal substances of unanointing. The temporal substance of unanointing. The spiritual substance of unanointing. The spiritual substances of unanointing. The spiritual substance of unanointing. The natural form of unanointing. The natural forms of unanointing. The natural form of unanointing. The supernatural form of unanointing. The supernatural forms of unanointing. The supernatural form of unanointing. The temporal form of unanointing. The temporal forms of unanointing. The temporal form of unanointing. The spiritual form of unanointing. The spiritual forms of unanointing. The spiritual form of unanointing. The age of unanointing. The ages of unanointing. the age of unanointing, the era of unanointing, the heiress of unanointing, the era of unanointing, the awakener of unanointing, the awakeners of unanointing, the awakener of unanointing, the awakening of unanointing, the awakenings of unanointing, the awakening of unanointing, the realm of unanointing, the realms of unanointing, the realm of unanointing, the dimension of unanointing, the dimensions of unanointing, the dimension of unanointing, the zone of unanointing, the zones of unanointing, the zone of unanointing, the frequency of unanointing, the frequencies of unanointing, the frequency of unanointing, the century of unanointing, the centuries of unanointing, the century of unanointing, the millennium of unanointing, the millenniums of unanointing, the millennium of unanointing, the purpose of unanointing, the purposes of unanointing, the purpose of unanointing, the meaning of unanointing, the meanings of unanointing, the meaning of unanointing, the culture of unanointing, the cultures of unanointing, the culture of unanointing, the demonstrator of unanointing, the demonstrators of unanointing, the demonstrator of unanointing, the demonstration of unanointing, the demonstrations of unanointing, the demonstration of unanointing, the manifester of unanointing, the manifestors of unanointing, the manifester of unanointing, the manifestation of unanointing, the manifestations of unanointing, the manifestation of unanointing, the presence of unanointing, the presences of unanointing, the presence of unanointing, the glow of unanointing, the glows of unanointing, the glow of unanointing, the goal of unanointing, the goals of unanointing, the goal of unanointing, the plan of unanointing, the plans of unanointing, the plan of unanointing, the book of unanointing, the books of unanointing, the book of unanointing, the philosopher of unanointing, the philosophers of unanointing, the philosopher of unanointing, the philosophy of unanointing, the philosophies of unanointing, the philosophy of unanointing, the releaser of unanointing, the releasers of unanointing, the releaser of unanointing, the release of unanointing, the releases of unanointing, the release of unanointing, the variable of unanointing, the variables of unanointing, the variable of unanointing, the cause of unanointing, the causes of unanointing, the cause of unanointing, the effect of unanointing, the effects of unanointing, the effect of unanointing, the journey of unanointing, the journeys of unanointing, the journey of unanointing, the emergence of unanointing, the emergences of unanointing, the emergence of unanointing, the source of unanointing, the sources of unanointing, the source of unanointing, the originator of unanointing, the originators of unanointing, the originator of unanointing, the origin of unanointing, the origins of unanointing, the origin of unanointing, the forefather of unanointing, the forefathers of unanointing, the forefather of unanointing, the foremother of unanointing, the foremothers of unanointing, the foremother of unanointing, the ancestor of unanointing, the ancestors of unanointing, the ancestor of unanointing, the descendant of unanointing, the descendants of unanointing, the descendant of unanointing, the lineage of unanointing, the lineages of unanointing, the lineage of unanointing, the heritage of unanointing, the heritages of unanointing, the heritage of unanointing, the heir of unanointing, the heirs of unanointing, the heir of unanointing, the co-heir of unanointing, the co-heirs of unanointing, the co-heir of unanointing, the joint heir of unanointing, the joint heirs of unanointing, the joint heir of unanointing, the dynasty of unanointing, the dynasties of unanointing, the dynasty of unanointing, the force of unanointing, the forces of unanointing, the force of unanointing, the law of unanointing, the laws of unanointing, the law of unanointing, the pact of unanointing, the pacts of unanointing, the pact of unanointing, the game of unanointing, the games of unanointing, the game of unanointing, the mask of unanointing, the masks of unanointing, the mask of unanointing, The armor of unanointing. The armors of unanointing. The armor of unanointing. The sword of unanointing. The swords of unanointing. The sword of unanointing. The shield of unanointing. The shields of unanointing. The shield of unanointing. The force shield of unanointing. The force shields of unanointing. The force shield of unanointing. The armored force shield of unanointing. The armored force shields of unanointing. The armored force shield of unanointing. The champion of unanointing. The champions of unanointing. The champion of unanointing. The guardian of unanointing. The guardians of unanointing. The guardian of unanointing. The defender of unanointing. The defenders of unanointing. The defender of unanointing. The protector of unanointing. The protectors of unanointing. The protector of unanointing. The chant of unanointing. The chants of unanointing. The chant of unanointing. The shape of unanointing. The shapes of unanointing. The shape of unanointing. The cube of unanointing. The cubes of unanointing. The cube of unanointing. The cuboid of unanointing. The cuboids of unanointing. The cuboid of unanointing. The sphere of unanointing. The spheres of unanointing. The sphere of unanointing. The spheroid of unanointing. The spheroids of unanointing. The spheroid of unanointing. The prism of unanointing. The prisms of unanointing. The prism of unanointing. The pyramid of unanointing. The pyramids of unanointing. The pyramid of unanointing. The cylinder of unanointing. The cylinders of unanointing. The cylinder of unanointing. The cone of unanointing. The cones of unanointing. The cone of unanointing. The triangle of unanointing. The triangles of unanointing. The triangle of unanointing. The circle of unanointing. The circles of unanointing. The circle of unanointing. The semicircle of unanointing. The semicircles of unanointing. The semicircle of unanointing. The square of unanointing. The squares of unanointing. The square of unanointing. The rectangle of unanointing. The rectangles of unanointing. The rectangle of unanointing. The parallelogram of unanointing. The parallelograms of unanointing. The parallelogram of unanointing. The rhombus of unanointing. The rhombuses of unanointing. The rhombus of unanointing. The trapezoid of unanointing. The trapezoids of unanointing. The trapezoid of unanointing. The polygon of unanointing. The polygons of unanointing. The polygon of unanointing. The pentagon of unanointing. The pentagons of unanointing. The pentagon of unanointing. The hexagon of unanointing. The hexagons of unanointing. The hexagon of unanointing. The septagon of unanointing. The septagons of unanointing. The septagon of unanointing. The octagon of unanointing. The octagons of unanointing. The octagon of unanointing. The nonagon of unanointing. The nonagons of unanointing. The nonagon of unanointing. The decagon of unanointing. The decagons of unanointing. The decagon of unanointing. The evolution of unanointing. The evolutions of unanointing. The evolution of unanointing. The revolution of unanointing. The revolutions of unanointing. The revolution of unanointing. The elemental art of unanointing. The elemental arts of unanointing. The elemental art of unanointing. The elemental science of unanointing. The elemental sciences of unanointing. The elemental science of unanointing. The elemental principle of unanointing. The elemental principles of unanointing. The elemental principle of unanointing. The elemental technology of unanointing. The elemental technologies of unanointing. The elemental technology of unanointing. The low elemental art of unanointing. The low elemental arts of unanointing. The low elemental art of unanointing. The low elemental science of unanointing. The low elemental sciences of unanointing. The low elemental science of unanointing. The low elemental principle of unanointing. The low elemental principles of unanointing. The low elemental principle of unanointing. The low elemental technology of unanointing. The low elemental technologies of unanointing. The low elemental technology of unanointing. The high elemental art of unanointing. The high elemental arts of unanointing. The high elemental art of unanointing. The high elemental science of unanointing. The high elemental sciences of unanointing. The high elemental science of unanointing. The high elemental principle of unanointing. The high elemental principles of unanointing. The high elemental principle of unanointing. The high elemental technology of unanointing. The high elemental technologies of unanointing. The high elemental technology of unanointing. The agent of unanointing. The agents of unanointing. The agent of unanointing. The agency of unanointing. The agencies of unanointing. The agency of unanointing. The amplifier of unanointing. The amplifiers of unanointing. The amplifier of unanointing. The amplification of unanointing. The amplifications of unanointing. The amplification of unanointing. The enhancer of unanointing. The enhancers of unanointing. The enhancer of unanointing. The enhancement of unanointing. The enhancements of unanointing. The enhancement of unanointing. The magnifier of unanointing. The magnifiers of unanointing. The magnifier of unanointing. The magnification of unanointing. The magnifications of unanointing. The magnification of unanointing. The influencer of unanointing. The influencers of unanointing. The influencer of unanointing. The influence of unanointing. The influences of unanointing. The influence of unanointing. The emanator of unanointing. The emanators of unanointing. The emanator of unanointing. The emanation of unanointing. The emanations of unanointing. The emanation of unanointing. The converger of unanointing. The convergers of unanointing. The converger of unanointing. The convergence of unanointing. The convergences of unanointing. The convergence of unanointing. The aura of unanointing. The auras of unanointing. The aura of unanointing. The impression of unanointing. The impressions of unanointing. The impression of unanointing. The intelligence of unanointing. The intelligences of unanointing. The intelligence of unanointing. The sophistication of unanointing. The sophistications of unanointing. The sophistication of unanointing. The genius of unanointing. The geniuses of unanointing. The genius of unanointing. The polymath of unanointing. The polymaths of unanointing. The polymath of unanointing. The psychic of unanointing. The psychics of unanointing. The psychic of unanointing. The knowledge of unanointing. The knowledges of unanointing. The knowledge of unanointing. The understanding of unanointing. The understandings of unanointing. The understanding of unanointing. The wisdom of unanointing. The wisdoms of unanointing. The wisdom of unanointing. The secret of unanointing. The secrets of unanointing. The secret of unanointing. The mystery of unanointing. The mysteries of unanointing. The mystery of unanointing. The revelation of unanointing. The revelations of unanointing. The revelation of unanointing. The tactic of unanointing. The tactics of unanointing. The tactic of unanointing. The strategy of unanointing. The strategies of unanointing. The strategy of unanointing. The strength of unanointing. The strengths of unanointing. The strength of unanointing. The might of unanointing. The mights of unanointing. The might of unanointing. The power of unanointing. The powers of unanointing. The power of unanointing. The authority of unanointing. The authorities of unanointing. The authority of unanointing. The dominion of unanointing. The dominions of unanointing. The dominion of unanointing. The rhythm of unanointing. The rhythms of unanointing. The rhythm of unanointing. The melody of unanointing. The melodies of unanointing. The melody of unanointing. The music of unanointing. The musics of unanointing. The music of unanointing. The lyric of unanointing. The lyrics of unanointing. The lyric of unanointing. The song of unanointing. The songs of unanointing. The song of unanointing. The dance of unanointing. The dances of unanointing. The dance of unanointing. The spirit of unanointing. The spirits of unanointing. the spirit of unanointing, the soul of unanointing, the souls of unanointing, the soul of unanointing, the body of unanointing, the bodies of unanointing, the body of unanointing, the mark of unanointing, the marks of unanointing, the mark of unanointing, the promise of unanointing, the promises of unanointing, the promise of unanointing, the visionary of unanointing, the visionaries of unanointing, the visionary of unanointing, the vision of unanointing, the visions of unanointing, the vision of unanointing, the picture of unanointing, the pictures of unanointing, the picture of unanointing, the sound of unanointing, the sounds of unanointing, the sound of unanointing, the tongue of unanointing, the tongues of unanointing, the tongue of unanointing, the language of unanointing, the languages of unanointing, the language of unanointing, the communication of unanointing, the communications of unanointing, the communication of unanointing, the people of unanointing, the peoples of unanointing, the people of unanointing, the society of unanointing, the societies of unanointing, the society of unanointing, the fortress of unanointing, the fortresses of unanointing, the fortress of unanointing, the government of unanointing, the governments of unanointing, the government of unanointing, the city of unanointing, the cities of unanointing, the city of unanointing, the nation of unanointing, the nations of unanointing, the nation of unanointing, the civilization of unanointing, the civilizations of unanointing, the civilization of unanointing, the world of unanointing, the worlds of unanointing, the world of unanointing,